there's a new DC slate in the horizon with new DC movies that will be coming towards us. And one of those is based off a comic book called Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. Now, I have read that book and I want to talk about it. So this is going to be, first, a comic book review. Second, we'll be getting into the predictions of what I think we'll see from the movie that's based off this comic. And I will say the third is going to be a rant on Tom King, because I will admit that I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of the man. He's a deconstructionist when it comes to writing, and I do not think that we need to destroy these characters. I think we need to lift these characters up, and he tends to destroy them, and it kind of bothers me. So, you know what you're getting in for if you stay for the full video. But, if you don't, I appreciate for the time that you choose to spend with me in this venture. So, let's get into it, okay? Now, let's start with the first things first. I'll tell you about the story itself, but the story itself is about a girl. I'm going to say her name wrong, but it's like Ruth Mary Knoll is the full name. But basically, her father is killed by a man named Krim of the Yellow Hills. Now, I am reading on this for a second because I'm terrible at names, so I'm reading on a website real quick to remember their names. I'm bad about names. But, she needs to go find somebody that will help avenge to murder this man who killed her father. So she goes on this, she goes down to this place, tries to find this one bounty hunter. This one bounty hunter tries to refuse, attempts to steal her sword from her, and Kara Zor-El saves her, and that's how they start their relationship. One thing leads to another, and Kara Zor-El is there to basically party for her 21st birthday, and they get in a fight with them. They end up shooting Crypto and shooting Kara Zor-El. The reason they can harm Kara is because she's under a red sun in this world. So the guy runs off on their spaceship. And so the rest of the story is Kara Zor-El and this young girl named Ruthie, as they go and try to seek this man for revenge and for justice. Okay? And you're wondering, at the end of it, where is this all going to lead to? Is Supergirl actually going to let this girl commit murder on this man or not? And you get to delve into the new kind of background on maybe explaining how the backstory of Supergirl and how she came to Earth. Okay? So, what are the things that I like about this comic? The best thing is the art. The art is incredible. The artist's name is Belikskis. I'm sorry, I'm going to get your name wrong. I'm terribly sorry about that. But Belikskis Everly, I'll just let you know, Miss Everly, you're the reason this book is so good. The book itself we'll get into, but you are the reason the book itself is so good and people love to read it because your art is incredible. So I really appreciate that. I appreciate your artwork. I appreciate what you did in this because it is very, very beautiful. I will say this. I would prefer to see this movie animated than I would even prefer to see it live action. Now, I think it could look very beautiful live action, but I would almost want to see this movie animated with your artwork because it's just so beautiful. If you want to pick this book up, that's the reason you want to pick it up, specifically because of this. Now, what about the writing? It's written by Tom King, and I'm not a fan of Tom King. I'll rant on Tom King in a second. But what I will say is that this is definitely some of the best work he has done. Now, there is things I don't like. Okay? The story is basically a ripoff of True Grit. I didn't think I was going to mind it. But what I would say is that it is very... You're dealing with these characters from outer space, and maybe one planet or maybe two planets would have a southern accent. But he writes every planet as if they have a southern accent. And it kind of gets annoying. I will also say that I felt like it was a chore to read Ruthie's commentary on the story. you realize pretty soon that this comic is basically her description of events that happened to her when she was a young girl. And so there's a point where maybe we'll see something different with her later on. We'll get into that. But the book itself is, it is what it is. So, reading it, some of the commentary on the sides were kind of a chore. But the bubbles, just the normal commentary, was pretty much a breeze to get through. Is it, like I said, is it basically a ripoff of True Grit? Yes. But in itself, that's not totally a bad idea. And what I would put it is somewhere in the middle. I thought about showing a video, and I'm not going to. But there's a great video that Kevin Smith does talking about the movie, the Superman movie that never was. And one of the guys that wanted to work on the film, I don't believe it was going to be Tim Burton was the director of that, I believe. But this guy wanted, I guess maybe he was a writer, he wanted Superman. He didn't want Superman to fly, and he wanted Superman to have a confrontation with a giant spider. And in that commentary, or in that situation, they chose, like, you know what, we're not going to have Superman. One, we're going to have Superman fly, but then two, we don't really, this whole thing about a spider, it just seems out of place. We're not going to do that. Well, Kevin Smith goes to see a movie called Wild Wild West, and at the end of that movie, what is there? There's a spider. And who worked on the Wild Wild West? The same guy who was pitching the spider idea for the Superman. Clearly, he just wanted a spider in a movie. That's what he wanted to do, and he finally did it. Now, did it make sense for a Western to have a giant robotic spider? I don't know. Probably not, but that's what he did because that's what he wanted to do. This very much feels kind of the same way, whereas Tom King wanted to write a Western, and the only thing he could put that into was, because he works at DC, he somehow made that work with Supergirl. And it does, basically, for all accounts, work. Now, I would say, do you want to pick this book up? If you're not a Tom King fan, you don't like his writing, maybe not, but I will say this is the better version of his writing. And what's annoying about Tom King, and I'll save that for later, but Tom King is a good writer if he chooses to be. But I'll get into the reasons I'm not a big fan of him later on. What I would like to do is get into, the predictions of this book. Now, will we see an exact adaptation of this book? Maybe not exactly, but I do see it being close. I will say one thing they could have added or explained more, there's a character named Comet that was cool to see in the comic, but they don't really explain who he is, what he's about, what his character's like. And it's kind of, I think, a missed opportunity because the character shows up and the character goes away. And then they don't really further explain anything else really about the character. And I think that's a mistake. But I do see them maybe adding Comet more into the movie. I do think adding Crypto to be part more of the movie, I think would be a good idea as well. Something happens to Crypto in the beginning of the book, and then you don't see him till the end of the book. And I see maybe having Crypto be more of the part of the movie would make better sense and would be more enjoyable. I also could see maybe if they replace this character, well, maybe not, but I could see them, if they can grab some things from the comics to put into it to make certain things work differently. I don't see an issue with that. And the girl, I don't think they need to make every alien race have a southern accent. And I honestly think they could probably skip through some of the alien planets they go to. They could skip some of them. And I don't think it would be that too big of a deal. And because I don't know exactly where all they're going. And I also think they could throw in some other DC characters, because this comic doesn't really have a lot of DC characters in the background that you would know of, things like that. They could easily, there's a part where they're going through these, they're going through the galaxy and they're going to these different ships and different things like that until they can get to a yellow sun. there's plenty of opportunities to show different aliens or different Easter eggs from comics. It would be a great opportunity to kind of help build the world of DC, and I think it would be a really great idea. So, do I think this movie in the future will work based off reading this comic? I do, and the question is going to be the question I brought up earlier, is pushing a southern western type, film idea onto a super galaxy space adventure. Are those good combinations? And they might be. I will say less narration. Definitely less narration will be needed in that movie. I think if we constantly hear the girl narrate every 5 seconds, that could be really annoying. I think showing and not telling is going to be the best answer to that. So I do hope they show that in the future. So, anyway, those are my thoughts about that. Now let's get into my Tom King rant, okay? Because Tom King is going to be the biggest issue with this film. Because I know he's going to be writing it, or he's going to be part of writing it. He's going to be part of the writing team to write this film. Now, is Tom King technically a good writer? I believe so, yes. Is Tom King a deconstructionist that totally destroys the essence of most characters he writes? I also believe so, yes. Now, that may make some of you mad, but I'm sorry. Some of the things that he has done specifically, and to me this is like, some of the things he's done is unforgivable. Some of the things he's done with Human Target about certain DC characters, turning Guy Gardner into this absolute just creep, turning, Martian Manhunter into this weird, like, needing flames for, like, a sexual kink, writing Mr. Terrific as someone who was basically glad that his wife and son died because he didn't want the responsibility of being a father. Not only is that super insulting, but it's honestly very annoying, and it makes me just despise Tom King as a writer, and it's just not needed. Maybe it worked for Mr. Miracle, maybe it worked for some of these other characters, and maybe having a darker scenario for Supergirl and what she's gone through versus what other people have gone through works. But not a fan of him. I'm not a fan of him. So does it concern me that he is working for DC as far as making movies? Yes. But maybe, because I know he loves Alan Moore. And Alan Moore is a good writer, but Alan Moore is a good writer. And copying a writer is probably not the best idea because you probably want to find your own voice. And so I do hope that maybe he can get some different writing tips or different writing skills from someone like James Gunn, who I do believe, he makes some pervy jokes and things, but I do believe that James Gunn has a more hopeful spirit. I think even though I think he does like deconstruction-esque comics, I don't believe he's a deconstructionist himself. I believe he wants to build these characters up to something to be loved and admired. So I hope that's the case, and I hope Tom King can learn from him in the future. And if so, maybe this movie will be very bright, and maybe we'll see something great coming from this. Now, I have a feeling they're bringing the Red Lanterns into the DC universe. I think just some things that James Gunn has tweeted and deleted. I think the Red Lanterns are going to be probably the secret main villains of the murder mystery, whatever they're doing with the Green Lantern show. And I could see them, it's supposed to be setting up a bigger thing for the DC universe. And we know in the comics, Supergirl does get a Red Lantern ring. And that could be very interesting for her character to kind of maybe start good, become questionable, and maybe end it off with her being that symbol of hope like her cousin Superman is, and give her that new identity. I think could be really cool, and it'd be something we've never seen before in comics, and seeing someone have a lantern ring that's also a Kryptonian would be pretty intense. So I think it could work. I think it could be good, and we'll just have to see. So anyway, guys, have you read Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow? If you have, what's your favorite part? Do you disagree with me as far as the writing goes? Do you think the writing is just spectacular? I think it's okay. Do you think, have you loved all of other Tom King's work? Do you disagree with me on that? Let me know in the comments. Do you love the art like me? I love the art. I think the art's the best part of this book. Anyway, guys, comment down below. Let me know what you're thinking. And wherever you're going, whatever you're doing, have a good one. Peace.